I'm Graeme McPherson, founder and CEO of GoFast Campers, and GoFast Campers was built back in 2018 out of a real need, a need in the marketplace that we didn't see met. I've used everything from sprinter vans to trailers to rooftop tents. There was no real solution for the type of adventure that we wanted to have. And what we're gonna do in this video is we're gonna go into each different category of vehicle and talk about what those things excel at and what they maybe fall short in and kind of where the GoFast Campers really differentiated. So we'll start off with RVs. RVs in like the most traditional sense is like a Class A, Class B, Class C motorhome. You're driving an E350 van that says Cruise America on the back. And what that is that's a house that you can drive down the road. And you really have to consider what roads those are being driven on because those houses are usually stapled together. So when it comes to having all of the space in the world, the lowest possible cost per square foot of space, having a bathroom, having a kitchen, having all of the amenities of a house, the downsides of that are you're not really gonna get into any meaningful adventures. You're not gonna fit anywhere that's really exciting. You're gonna have to plan everything well in advance for campsites, campgrounds, places to park. And those RVs are great for traveling on the pavement. If you wanna get out of a cold weather area in winter in Arizona, there's probably not a better solution for a big long trip where you're traveling on the highway, parking it and living out of it. RVs are pretty simple. If you wanna go a little more adventurous, still carry all those amenities with you, still bring the kitchen sink, that's where expedition vehicles fall in. So that expedition vehicle, we're talking about stuff like Truck House, Earth Roamer, GXV, the big, often European style rigs that are FRP composite panels or big monocoque structures. The differentiating factor between an RV and what we'd consider to be like an expedition vehicle is usually primarily the chassis it goes on and the construction. So RVs fall short by simply being built to be as cheap as possible. So they'll use a cutaway E350 van, they'll use a big Class A motor coach, and it's just a simple chassis. It's usually two-wheel drive. It's not built for vibration. It's not built for high frequency off-road environment. Those cost-driven units really aren't meant to take you very far off the beaten path. The biggest downside to this, in addition to the size, is the expense. We're talking $500,000 as the barrier to entry to get into one of these types of vehicles. And what they do is they take all the amenities of an RV, all the design concepts, and they build it out of ultra high quality materials, typically. And the chassis they put those on are things like F550s or medium duty, like large trucks, able to carry 20,000 pounds. And there's a few exceptions in that world where you might have something a little lighter and a little faster, but at the end of the day, everything is big, much bigger than the truck that you want to daily drive around town. The downsides for an expedition vehicle are cost, size, and honestly, ownership. And that's another big drawback to RVs as well, is finding a place to park it, finding a place to store it, finding a way to winterize it, all the maintenance, all the headache that goes into having a vehicle that's sheltered and sitting in a shop, ideally, for 6 months at a time. God forbid you leave it outside. The upside to an expedition vehicle is if you're gonna travel around the world with a family for 2 years, do your homeschooling out of the back, there probably isn't a better solution for that as long as you have the budget. And you're going places where that thing's gonna fit. So a 20,000 pound truck isn't gonna go on every road. A 10.5 foot tall vehicle isn't gonna fit on every trail. So you really have to think about where you're going on this. If you're gonna go across the Gobi Desert in Mongolia and China, if you're gonna go to Morocco, if you're gonna go to Death Valley, Baja maybe, there's a lot of places you can go. When it comes to anything with forests, anything with technical rock crawling trails, or anything where recovery may need to happen, how are you gonna get a 25,000 pound vehicle off of a trail at altitude in Colorado? It's probably just not gonna happen. The next step down that ladder is probably a pickup truck camper. So that's more of like a slide in. So stuff like a Lance, a 4-wheel camper, that quality can range pretty drastically. You have a higher quality product, maybe something like a Scout camper or a Bigfoot, kind of a 2-piece Northern Light molded shell, all the way down to the stuff you normally see out of Elkhart, Indiana, where every other RV is made, where these things are stapled together, made out of wood. They'll leak in 2 years, and all they're worried about is getting you to commit to buying and financing it for 15 years. The function of that is, in theory, you can turn your truck back into a truck. The investment cost is a little lower because you're not fully replacing the bed. You're not integrating the camper into the actual chassis of the vehicle. So truck campers do have some downsides. First off, there's just nowhere near as much room as you're gonna get in a RV. A traditional RV is gonna have a lot more space. Blending the driving area with the living area is really a way to kind of optimize that interior volume and overall length of the vehicle. And the truck camper is really, to drive well, has to fit inside the bed of a truck. And the biggest truck beds are 8 feet long. You can extend off the back. That leads to a whole other issues where these things get massively overloaded. The long and the short of a truck slide-in camper is you're optimizing for cost by making it efficiently, which does have downsides, and you're getting a lot of features without a lot of volume. The typical user of a truck camper is going to be somebody who's maybe older, single dude, traveling around the country, older couple. You do get some younger people out there, but with families, it gets really hard just because there's not a lot of space in a truck bed, and you're gonna get a lot more space out of a traditional RV. The idea of being able to take your truck and convert it back into your daily driver is glamorous, but these things get killed in storage. So first off, you have to find a place to take this truck bed camper out of the vehicle and store it. Ideally, that's inside, but you have to have a garage with like a 12 or 14 foot door to even get the vehicle inside in the first place. And then you have to winterize. You still have a lot of the headaches of RV ownership. You have the benefits of being able to get your truck back, but that comes at a cost of it being a headache. And these things are not built typically to be the most durable solution on the market. Everything I've mentioned up until this point can't really be used as a daily driver. Where the daily drivability starts to come in here a little bit for some people is a Sprinter van. And the Sprinter van builds, and I use Sprinter van generally, it's van life in general here. You can drive a converted van as your daily driver as long as you're willing to drive a large vehicle, typically a vehicle that's tall, a vehicle that's heavy, and a vehicle that's very expensive. The big upside to the layout of a Sprinter van is that your driving area is the same as your living area. The downside of a truck camper is that when you're in the camper, you're not in the truck. The Sprinter van, you can put the front seats on a swivel. You have this whole interior volume, this living space that's really convenient. Because you're sitting on top of the engine effectively, it also gives you a really short overall length for a lot of internal volume, but there are downsides. And downsides to vans in general. Most of the larger vans are unibody construction. They are not built to go off-road. They're not built to hold up to off-road abuse. And all of the build-outs that you see in the van, all the cabinetry, all the woodwork, all of the features and functionality are a liability when it comes to true off-road adventures. So everything up until this point, apart from maybe the Expedition camper, is really gonna be happier going to improved campgrounds, mostly spending time on the pavement. Even a four-wheel drive van, like you can totally drive a van off-road. It's totally doable. But you're either gonna go really slow and be really careful where you take it, or it's gonna start rattling apart. And when you're sitting in the RV driving down the road, those rattles can drive you nuts. There's really no way around solving that problem. The Sprinter van is a great compromise to be able to own an RV without a lot of the RV headaches. Typically see a much higher build quality in a Sprinter van, which is also a great thing to have. The downside is you're still compromised for living comfort and you're not able to use it off-road. It's really not an off-road platform. You're super top heavy, vibration tears those things apart, and those chassis aren't built for off-roading. The four-wheel drive ones, all that stuff, it's mostly built to drive in snowy conditions and have better traction. When it comes to trails, when it comes to off camber, when it comes to all the things that are getting to a fun spot away from all the people that are outside these days, a Sprinter van doesn't get you that much further away from civilization than something like a pickup truck camper. But it will get you a lot further off-road than a traditional RV. So now we're gonna get into more off-road friendly options, or at least perception of off-road friendly options. We'll start out with overland trailers. Overland trailers are small tow-behind trailers, often based off of like a teardrop geometry, typically not like a trailer, like a fifth wheel trailer that you can like stand up inside. Those are a lot more similar to RVs. These are off-road. They're short wheelbase. They usually have big tires. They're usually built with decent suspension. The build quality on them is good. The downside is you're still pulling a trailer. So if you want to back up down a trail, if you want to turn around in a tight space, if you want to be able to go fast off-road, if you want to go through bumps, everything slows down when you have a trailer. And you're pulling this thing behind you. In a lot of states, you have to go slower on the highway. You have 2 more tires to have potential flats with. You have another thing to park at your house. The trailer gives you the ability to bring a lot more things with you, and whether or not those things are worth bringing is really up to you. So if you're the kind of person that like wants to go set up a camp and wheel Moab, but leave your campsite all set up and have a Jeep that's completely unencumbered, trailers work great for that. But if you're a person who wants to go on an adventure, that wants to go see if the trail keeps going or if it kind of peters out, being able to go into those situations that have unknowns is really challenging with a trailer. So the next category of things to go after in the off-road space are rooftop tents and ground tents, so really tents in general. Where rooftop tents are great is all the functionality to be able to sleep on top of your car. So if you're parked in a muddy place, if you're parked in a rocky place, it's easy to find level ground, open up the tent, Usually it's pretty easy to set up and break down. Quality comes and goes, but there are a lot of good products in the rooftop tent category. We make rooftop tents. The ground tent has a lot of drawbacks and a lot of upsides. So the ground tent is going to be your cheapest option to get out camping. And if that's where you are with your budget, that's the #1 recommended solution from us, is get a good ground tent and just go have fun. But ground tents get wet. Ground tents do take maintenance. You have to dry them out after you use them. Make sure they don't ever get moldy, they don't ever get musty. There's a lot of little things you have to worry about with a ground tent to make sure it all sets up well. And it can be really hard to set up a ground tent in certain places. And it's not just the places where it's rocky and muddy on the ground. It can be weird to set up a ground tent at a truck stop, at your friend's house. That kind of brings us to the real problem that when we started Go Fast Camper, we set out to solve. There was nothing that was affordable, durable, could actually be used for hard off-road use, but didn't ruin your vehicle as a daily driver, and something that would honestly stay out of the landfill. So looking at all the options on the market, there was a huge hole and a huge need for something that was really strong, that was affordable, that you could use as your daily driver. It wasn't gonna affect your vehicle negatively, and honestly is easy to own. We wanted to make a product that actually allowed you to go on real adventures. If you're not the kind of person who wants to book a campsite 6 months in advance, if you're not the kind of person that wants to camp at an improved campground next to somebody's generator, if you're not the kind of person that wants to be in crowds when they go out into the wilderness, or if you don't want to be roped into having to plan ahead, the Go Fast is designed specifically for that use case. This thing can go anywhere. And really, we designed this thing to go to Baja. We love going to Mexico. My family raced Baja since the 60s. One of the most interesting things about owning and building this company and building this product is where I use it the most. I have more nights at truck stops, traveling around the country, going to meetings, going to events, going to shows. So being able to have that convenience of, I don't want to go spend 120 bucks at some hotel in the middle of nowhere in Washington when I'm heading over to Seattle from Montana. I want to be able to just pull off the side of the road, sleep for 6 hours, get back in the car and keep going. And whether you're on an adventure or whether you're going to work or whether you're daily driving it, that spontaneity is core to our product ethos. And not having to be roped in to this idea of every trip has to be planned, every distance has to be measured. With a Go Fast, you can just go do stuff. You can go on any adventure you want. The other huge benefit to this thing is the fact that it's not even there. You don't even notice it. So being able to have a topper on the back of your truck, a place to secure your gear, to close the sides, to lock them up and keep all of your stuff safe when you're on a road trip or if you're just daily driving around town is huge. And then to be able to sleep above that and not have to move everything out of the way to sleep in the back of a truck. Especially nowadays, most pickup trucks have 5-foot beds, maybe 6-foot beds if you're lucky. So we built an 8-foot long sleeping platform on top of the truck bed. So gear goes below, all of your stuff. You have pass through from the inside, so you can stand up in the truck bed, you can change, you can put on a wetsuit, you can do whatever you need. But when you're closed off up top, you're completely isolated from all of the gear you're carrying below. You also have all of the benefits of the rooftop tent. So if you're camping in a rocky area, if you're camping in a muddy area, and setup and takedown time are virtually instantaneous. I mean, it's 15 seconds to open it, 15 seconds to close it. That's not even the part to consider because it is so fast. The biggest thing about the convenience of owning this thing is the lack of maintenance. So because the roof is a hard panel, pretty much all the water in a rain, snow, wet environment is gonna run off the roof, off the vehicle, and the tent fabric stays relatively dry and it dries out when you're underway going down the road. So you close the tent, tuck it in, shut it, latch it, and you're off. One of the most annoying things about owning a traditional truck camper and RV is those noises when you hit a bump on accident. And having to think about what's behind you all the time is actually the most disconcerting experience you can have off-road. When you think something might be broken or is actively breaking as you're driving down the road, it takes the trip from being fun to stressful. And the idea behind the Go Fast and why we built it to be so strong is to never have those problems. So I've got a little cross section of our tube frame here. And what we did is we actually took the inspiration for the construction of this camper from race trucks. Everything about this thing is designed to optimize strength. So you have this big space frame backbone of the product, and then you have the tent sitting on top, and that tent can carry a ton of weight on the roof. So if you're gonna use your truck to go haul lumber, if you're gonna use a truck to do all the stuff you originally bought your truck to do, it'll still do it. And compared to a normal 5-foot bed Tacoma, it'll do even more work than your previous one because you can carry 500 pounds on the roof with our crossbars. We wanted to get rid of all those compromises that come with your traditional RV with the ownership experience around having to maintain something all the time and just have something that sits in the back of your truck, allows you to go camping on a moment's notice, allows you to go deeper. So if you're going to a trailhead and it's all crowded, just go a little further. And you'll go places other people just purely cannot go. That's what this product's built for. So if you're the kind of person that wants to go in an RV, go to a national park, go to a paid campground that's $50 a night, you have to book 6 months in advance, that's totally fine. And the Go Fast Camper can and will do those things if you want it to, but it will not bring a toilet, it doesn't bring a sink, it doesn't bring a shower, but it doesn't bring the headaches of any of that stuff either. We designed a product that you could take anywhere. You could take it on the Rubicon Trail. You could take it to the deserts of Baja. You could take it on massive exploration trips where the truck is not gonna be the thing that's slowing you down, especially the camper is not gonna be the thing that's slowing you down. So if you want a product that's light, strong, durable, still provides a comfy camping experience, and lets you go out and have those real adventures, the Go Fast is for you. If that's not what you're looking for, there's plenty of other options on the market. Go get an RV. You're gonna have a great time regardless. So if you have any questions, hit us up in the comments and we'll see you out there.